Hi, hello everyone. My name is Promise Odera Onu. Apologies, I couldn't do this live yesterday. Um, I'm getting more lazy by the day. The weather is not even helping, it's too hot. But yeah, I prefer the summer to winter though. But yeah, today we are going to speak on an issue I tend to be very important and pivotal to the predicaments that people face in Nigeria, and that has to do with our workers, our you know, skilled and unskilled workforce. Quacks, incompetent, unlicensed, and uncertificated, skilled and unskilled workers. What should be the best practices with regards to these workers? And I think government should be responsible to an extent on how to, license workers, on how to make sure people get certificate for whatever they are doing, how to control the workforce, make people accountable, even in terms of paying taxes. These things are very important because a lot of times people just go out of their way to engage in things because, of course, they are looking for money. Government is not responsible for employment, unemployment, helping you in terms of welfare if you're out of job, maybe because of accident, maybe because of ill health, maybe because of any issue. Government doesn't care really. But then these are things that other governments of other Senate climes, do. So today we're going to be looking at what's the best practices, and I'm going to, really speak to things that I think affect us. When I'm talking about Nigeria, because Nigeria is highly underdeveloped and poverty capital of the world, one of the highest unemployed, or one of the countries with the highest unemployment as we speak. Over 135 million people living under poverty, and a good percentage, over 40%, unemployed or underemployed. Now, minimum wage is like 30,000, so that shows that even if you are working for government as a civil servant, you probably will be doing business on the side. Now, everything should be controlled. Government should control everything: businesses, vocational work, businesses, even whatever you think, even banks, institutions, school, everything should be under the control and oversight of the government. And today we're going to look at our skilled and unskilled workers. Basically, what is skilled worker? A skilled worker is somebody who has a sort of a technical knowledge to do whatever he's doing. An unskilled worker is somebody who just provide labor, provide workforce. Somebody who doesn't really need to think. He's not paid to think. He's paid to just do or carry out an instruction. Somebody's telling him what to do. Carry this from here, go here. But once you start applying a particular knowledge to what you do, to your craft, then you become skilled. Now, a lot of times in Nigeria, what is obtainable is people just go into whatever they like, whatever they think they can make money from. There's no regulations. Worst case scenario, somebody will be charging you tax. Usually quacks as well, or should I use what they call normally abero? That people pay taxes to. Maybe very small, but they pay sort of a daily stipend or a little amount of money to these people in form of tax, and they collect this money for the government. Now, we've seen some places that some governments are now saying they will collect these monies themselves. Somebody like Alex Otia said, no Aboro should pay or collect money anymore. Anambra State slowly try and do the same thing, saying, people should not pay any money to all these Aboros. Oftentimes they're not. These guys enrich themselves. You might look at them, they're doing demeaning jobs, because they are called Aboro and they are touts and they smoke and drink. But some of these guys build houses and own good cars and live very well from what they collect daily from people. Nigeria has numbers, so if you are collecting money from people, no matter how small, you can easily accumulate wealth. So today, without wasting a lot of time, I just want to deliberate on this. Firsthand, I've experienced a lot of issues with these quacks. Now, let's start with a quack. Who is a quack? A quack simply means somebody working in a medical field who is not licensed or trained. Say, for example, a quack nurse, quack doctor, quack pharmacist, or whatever. There's a lot of quacks in Nigeria. A lot of people just go to do apprenticeship or to learn trade, and they say they become what do you call it? A pharmacist. They own a chemist. They own a shop where they sell drugs. A lot of drugs in Nigeria should be regulated, but they are not. Here, you can't buy any drug that is meant to be by prescription. There are some drugs you can buy off the shelf, paracetamols and stuff like that. But usually in Nigeria, you can as well get any as strong as any drug, and there's less regulations. And these are things we expect the government to do. A lot of people actually die because of these issues, because people that import drugs, there's no regulation to it. A lot of drugs are manufactured in Nigeria as well. I should hope there's some level of regulations, but most of the time, if you pay the money you're supposed to pay, these guys don't even visit. They just assume you're doing the right thing. So again, we need to sort of start looking at how do we control every aspect of our economy, every aspect of what people do, to show accountability, because people are just dying. And I think one of the most reasons why you can see that nobody cares is because nobody is taking record of the number of deaths per day. I mean, I'm telling you now, there's a lot of underreporting in Nigeria. There are a lot of things that people, because of social media now, and because everybody have access to phones, can report on WhatsApp. You can see videos of what's going on in the villages, probably in the southeast, and that doesn't make it to the mainstream news. The numbers are high. There's a lot of accidents that you hardly see on mainstream media. You can't see it on channels or Arise or whatever, that are going on daily on Nigeria. So a lot of Nigerians are dying daily. So the census could have been good, but we know that with every project in Nigeria, people just want to use it to enrich themselves, especially our political class. So I like the way it was suspended or paused for a while, because it's just an avenue to waste money. But then we need to start recording births and deaths, so that will give us a figure, and people will now see how alarming the number of deaths per day in Nigeria across the nation. There's a lot of them that are reporting, like I said, a lot of lives are being lost to a lot of things, and most of them, of course, to the medical field, which is why I've proposed in one of my videos. We all hope that Peter Obi will get into power, of course, and he's going to be the best man to have this legacy. But I mean, we saw the bill that Tinubu signed with student loan. If he does some of these things, we're going to applaud him, and I think the student loan is good. But at the same time, I'm hearing that the criteria of getting those loans are high. Getting level 12 civil servants from where? If you have that kind of person, why would you need loan in the first place? That person might as well pay your school fees. But yeah, I mean, it's a welcome development. But then let's discuss about other things following that. I think one of the major issues, especially with education in Nigeria, is that we need to standardize the cutoff marks. You can't tell a student, these guys are kids, they don't know anything. You can't tell a student, because you're in the south, your cutoff mark for getting into medicine is 250, for engineering 275, or whatever. And the same age, the same examination set elsewhere in Nigeria, the same country, you're telling somebody else, if you get 120, you get into university. If you get 160, you get medicine. If you get 180, you can get engineering. That's rubbish. We need to standardize that. And all these educational privileged or disadvantaged scheme, we need to scrap it. A lot of our folks in the north, a lot of our brothers and sisters in the north are well educated. They are very sound. You see the likes of Jim Ibrahim, you see, let's say he's a Yoruba man. You see the likes of, the Northern Elders Forum leader. These guys, they come on TV and they're excellent, they're eloquent, So being a Northerner does not mean you're educationally disadvantaged anymore. I don't think so. I think a Northerner I went to school in the UK, and I had the Nigerians that I went to school with, a majority of them were from the north, and they were good. They passed out. So what am I trying to say? You can't just say people from the north are educationally disadvantaged or less privileged. We need to scrap that now, because they are now getting more advantage over the people from the south. And what you are seeing is, of course, when it comes to looking at the overall best performance, usually most of the times it's people from the south. But that does not mean we should now start punishing people, because that's what it is. Because by the time you give somebody a very high mark to get into a university of his choice, and then give a very less mark for somebody else, the person that has scored 250 is struggling to get into medicine, because, of course, the school quota is probably, like somebody was saying on Peter's live, that Uniben, for example, takes about 4,000 students, and each year 44,000 write their post-UME. That's after passing WAEC, which is about, I can't remember how many subjects now, is it 15 or 12 subjects, and then you write JAMB and score, the cutoff mark for Uniben, you still have to write their post-UTME and 44,000, right? And out of 44,000, they can only take 4,000. So 40,000 students get rejected. So why can't these 40 students go to elsewhere, go to any university in Nigeria? Why is the cutoff mark so high down in the south, and then elsewhere it is so low? So we need to look at providing security for all the universities in Nigeria, so every student can go to school in Nigeria. At least if you know you're struggling to get university in the south because of the high marks, you can actually get university, because of the quota system, because every university have a limit in terms of how many students they can admit, because probably the lecture room can take 100 students. They cannot, give admission to 200 students, because of course all the ability or the capacity is for 100 students. Now there's something they call the VC list, they call the governors list, lecturers list, and all the lists, right? And these people take priority. So the governor will bring list of students he wants to get admission into Uniben, for example. Lecturers will bring list of those they want to give students, their cousins, their relatives, or their friends, or whoever has paid them. And then the school have to give these people admission before it comes down to you that have scored very high in your JAMB. Other than that, you won't get admission. And all these things hamper, the progressive, the academic progression of students. And you see people very brilliant. Like I said, one of my classmates, the best in mathematics in my school, just got admission this year. And I've come out of school since when? And bear in mind, if I have gone into university straight after, because for me, I don't want to call myself brilliant, but I think I'm in that category, right? Because in my primary school, from primary 4, I was promoted to primary 6. Crown Model Primary School, one of the best primary schools in Onitsha. Go and check. Crown Model Primary School, 10 of us are being promoted from primary 4 to primary 6. That's the school standard. Now, out of the 10 of us, we swept our exams. A few of us went to federal school, some went to command, and some went to gifted. Well, I went to the state school. My name came out in CKC, which is Peter Obi's alma mater. But because of the strike then, my father couldn't wait for me to, stay at home and, be waiting for government to resume, because CKC is a government school. So I had to go to a mission school. And in that same mission school, after SS1, I wrote my NECO GCE. My school didn't even know. As an SS2, I've gone to another secondary school, because I told my teachers, I want to write WAEC with this SS3 student. They said, no, you can't jump your class. So I had to go to another school and write my WAEC. I started going to lessons I think from SS2, SS1, I started going to lessons, FIDEC tutorials. Go and check them. They're one of the best in Onitsha. So, right, I wrote my WAEC and I managed to get it. And I started applying to study abroad, because, again, I had to face that issue. I tried to get into a suit and I couldn't get into a suit. Again, even though I tried to be, because one of my uncles was, close to the governor then, I tried to be on the list, and I couldn't even get admission, even be on his list, because then there was change of government. So the new governor gave his own list. Now, long story short, I couldn't get admission. Now, what do I have to do? I started looking elsewhere. I want to study abroad. This is hampering me. Now, it took me 3 years to get visa. So I now finished at 2014. Now, had it been I actually went to school straight after I came out, I probably would have finished uni probably 21, so probably 2011, 2012. So you can imagine from 2012 to 2022, 2023, somebody's still getting admission, this year. So it's absurd. So we have to look at standardizing the requirements for university degree or tertiary education in Nigeria across board. We must, as a matter of urgency, look into it if we really want to give a level playing field for students. Now, it's a welcome development to give loans, but then we have to make it accessible to the poor. And being that if you don't know anybody, we're trying to build a community or a country where the son of a nobody can become somebody, without, how do they even say it? A son of a nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. So we need to sort of give that benefit of that to poor people that have actually done well, especially those who have done well. Even if it's a form of scholarship, yes, it is a loan they have to pay back. We'll have to have a way to do this, because that's what's obtainable. I mean, here in this country, I don't pay for my students' school fees, and you don't pay school fees till they finish their whole education. I mean, until university, I believe, and then they have to, get loans if their parents can afford the school fees. And the tuition is actually half of what international students have to pay. or less than what international students have to pay. So government needs to look into this if really they are genuinely caring about education, which I think is a very good. I appreciate what he's done, signing it into bill as a starter. They said the bill was passed by Bajamila, who is now the chief of staff. So well done to them. But then we have to do more. We have to standardize education because that's what will actually affect everybody. When I mean everybody, I mean because this bill, everybody starts saying is now saying is going to affect the poor, the rich. So we have to start looking at what can we do that can affect positively the lives of the poor. That's what we have to look at. So the child of a poor man might not know anybody that is a 12th level civil servant, if that's the criteria. I don't know what. So we have to make it easy for people to assess. Now, the other thing is what I've just said. We need to make sure, cut all these hurdles. Here in the UK, you do GCSE, which is the equivalent of our WAEC, West African Education Council, right? Once you get through that, you apply to university. University will select you based on your results, and that's it. And that's why I came here to study. I didn't do my university degree in Nigeria purely because of that. As brainy as I was getting all this issue with getting admission. I applied to UNN, I wouldn't get it. I applied to Institute, I didn't get it. I was like, okay, what's going on? I just applied to university here and I got it, instantly. So I was like, okay, how can I not get admission in Nigeria? But I got admission abroad. And then the only thing that made me stay 3 years, was purely my visa. And then as soon as I got my visa, I landed and I started school. Nobody asked me for JAMB. Nobody asked me for any other equivalent. All they wanted to know if I can speak English. I gave them my English and all I got in English. And they can see I got the credit. And they allowed me to school. So we need to make education here. They encourage students to go to school and they don't even want to go to school. Here in the UK, they actually give incentives for people to go to uni. They don't want to go. They even give you a bursary if you are reading some kind of courses like they need nurses and all of that. They give you bursary. If you do PhD in this country, they will be paying you. There's a lot of scholarship schemes. Even at that, people don't want to go to school. So beneficiary of this scholarship and incentives usually are not even it's not even their people. I'm talking about UK now. But in Nigeria, it's like the system is fighting you. You want to go to school, but yet the system is fighting you. How can 44,000 write an exam and only 4,000 is taken into a university? 40,000 get thrown back into the market. And what do these guys do? They're the ones roaming the streets, going to HKs, trying to do Yahoo and all the rest. So we need to get these people off the feet. I'm not even talking about when strike hits. Because when strike hits, it affects everybody. And sometimes it's 8 months, 1 year plus, a long time. And people are just roaming the street doing nothing. Some people have opportunity to have good parents, we put them into classes or vocational studies or probably learn IT courses or, go and join business. I mean, in my own time while I was waiting for my visa, I was going to my father's shop and joining my mom in her business. But then not everybody have business. Not everybody have to do that. Sometimes people want to train to school. You are out of school for such a long time. You come back, they say, I've got other things I'm doing. They wouldn't want to train to school. Some people don't have people to finance their education. There is no scholarship. There is no free education. So a lot of people are now bound to do things they don't want to do. Do you understand? So we need to look at this as a matter of priority. And then make education very accessible. Make sure that our universities are protected, especially in places in the north where there is insurgency and all of that. And then let all these schools open up to admission from anywhere. So if you are from Anambra State, you can go to school in Sokoto, you can go to university in Kano, you can go anywhere. And if that is happening, how many universities do we have in Nigeria? What is the quota system? Can we look into the data? Can we publish it and tell everybody, okay, regardless, you can go to school anywhere? Right? You can see in the UK, somebody will go to school in London and tell you they're going to university in Manchester or they're going to university in Scotland. Nobody has an issue with that. You can decide to go to school in Norwich, you can decide to go to school. And when you look at students when they come out of GCSE, when they are going to university, they don't usually want to stay within their city or where their family lives. They want to go far. So they're always going far. So in Nigeria, why are we always stuck in the south? I grew up in Onitsha. I want to go to school in Enugu. I want to go to. Why do you want to stay in that region? Why can't you travel away? All these things is because of all the security challenges that we have, especially in the north. So we have to look at standardizing, especially first of all the requirements. And what are the requirements? If you have a cutoff, let it add cutoff be for everybody. If you make it high, let it be high for everybody. Say for example, medicine is 200 across board. Every university you must accept. And all these extra requirements of somebody have gone through the hurdle of writing WAEC, gone through the hurdle of writing JAMB. Why are you doing post-UME again? We don't even need the JAMB. WAEC should be enough. If you get a certain number of courses, you should do WAEC. Okay, be that is made, to go to medical school here is hard. You have to, the recruitment process or the admission process into medicine here is extremely hard, right? So let's say for all those kind of courses, from professional courses, law, medicine, you put all these extra hurdles, but at the same time, it should be standardized everywhere. Even if there is, let's say, ranking of schools, and you want to make it more difficult for some particular schools, because here there's something called Ivy League schools. There are schools that, of course, if you go to them, you belong to the high class, say, for example, Oxford and Cambridge and stuff like that. But then let us know it is purely because of that reason. But every other school should at least be fair for people to just get into. People just want to study. Why are you making it too hard? So that is it. So that is now talking about people who want to go through the four wall of formal education, go through the four wall of universities, come out with a degree, and of course those are your highly skilled. You call them highly skilled, of course, because they have a degree. Now coming back to the skilled force, what is skilled force? Somebody is a plumber, he's learned a trade, he's a carpenter. Of course, here in the UK, you don't just come out and say you're a carpenter. You just come out and become what do you call it, a plumber. You go to school or a training for that. You go to a conventional training, and we used to have all these vocational training and vocational universities, or what do you call them, learning places. There used to be like IMT, even Yabatech. There used to be like all these purely technological and vocational schools where people go and learn skills and become engineers and stuff like that. But these days, the government don't pay attention to this, and we need these things to drive our technological advancement, our innovation, and all of these things. We need to bring these things back, and then help people to get into it, especially when you're doing too well. Government in this country, they look at students, they study them, especially when you are younger. See how good you are, and they harness your potential. They sort of stratify you based on how well you are doing, and then put you in schools of your especially. And I think the simple thing is your grade takes you to where you go next. So your grade in primary school, that means where you go to your secondary, and that means where you go to your tertiary and all of that. And that's what we need to employ in Nigeria. But make everything fair. Make the cutoff mark fair. Now, coming back to the nitty-gritty of what I'm trying to say today. If you're a mechanic, there should be a certification for what you are doing. There should be a license for what you're doing. What we have in Nigeria, are unskilled people, or let me say uncertified people. So your car breaks down. You don't know where to go to. You ask around, please, is there any mechanic around here? They will point and point and point. You go there. There's nothing to sort of show to make you rest assured that this person is a qualified mechanic. The next thing, you pay money and they damage your car even more. This is very, very cumbersome. People use, how do I say, fake parts or things that are not original parts of the, here. If you take your car to a mechanic, they will use the company. So if you're taking your car, for example, you have a Toyota car, a Toyota parts will be, bought, even if it's not a Toyota repair center, even if it's a, normal mechanic, that is like on the road, they will make sure they get the spare parts exactly like for like from the company, from the Toyota company. And these are things we need to do, because cars, life of human being depend on how good the car is. So when people have accidents, the reason why people, when they have accidents in Nigeria, everybody almost die, or it's always very fatal, is because people just do a lot of mess. I don't know how to put it. Like you see people, they sort of use a product for, let me just use two German cars. They will use an Audi product on a Mercedes, or a BMW product on a Mercedes, and tell you it's the same thing. Most times, because we are dealing with people who didn't study what they are doing, people who learned it on the street, and they will say, oh, this is my boy, he's learned it over how many years, and they continue the tradition without even knowing. Yes, they can fix your car, but it's always try and error. You drive it, after a while you notice that the same fault is developing over and they keep doing the same thing until they damage the engine. Or look at most cars. Simple way to understand what I'm trying to say. Look at most cars. You will see that the warning lights are always on. Nigerians, they don't see it as anything bad. Here, was the warning light is on, you stop and go and take it to a center to fix it. You can't drive a car with a warning light on. But Nigeria, there's always warning light, and sometimes the danger light is on and they keep driving. Until that car stops moving, that's when they will know that something is wrong, or they will start looking at, So these are the things. We need to look at how to make incompetent people competent, unlicensed people licensed, and there should be a process. So, for example, somebody said he's a carpenter, for example. There should be a level, even if it's not everything is not about making money. You shouldn't be charging everybody, you need to get a license and make the license a fee for them to get it, to say their license. No, that's what we're talking about. There should be a way, and look at how important their job is. If a carpenter doesn't know what he's doing, of course, the durability of the house, or there will be issues with the house, for example, or it will come at a very high cost to whoever is building, because there will be issues, and it has to try and fix that. Now, we have to look at how do we, because here, for you to say you've learned a trade and you're enjoying, they call it jointly or something, Joinery, and or you say you're a carpenter. Let's use the word carpenter so everybody understands what I'm trying to say. You sort of have done a sort of training and understand. So you don't just come out and just become anything you choose to. There should be a process of registration. There should be a process to say, okay, I've done this. And that is one thing that is very important about this, our society here in the UK. Almost everything. Say, for example, you have an issue with your light. Nigeria, people will just climb up and fix it themselves. Or they will just call anybody that claims he's an electrician. So, Nigeria, anything you call yourself is what you are. And people do a little bit about everything. Somebody can fix his light. Of course, there's DIY, don't get me wrong. You can do DIY here in the UK, do things your own. But at the same time, there are things you cannot do. If it's something you are using, say, for example, you can do DIY for what you are using at home, but you can't do DIY for others, for example, because, again, there is regulations for those kind of things, especially when it goes wrong. When it goes wrong, then government will ask you, why did you have to do this? Do you have any learning? And again, even when you are doing DIY, there is procedure. You can learn things off, but not things like wiring. You can't do wiring on your own. You need somebody who is a certified electrician. But in Nigeria, you see, and that's why a lot of people die. A lot of deaths are, electrocution. The other day I saw a picture of somebody on a transformer. What is that person doing? What is he? Is he going there? Some people say he went there to kiss the transformer. Some people say he was on colos, which is another thing again that we need to address. Drug abuse by the youths. Why are all these things happening? Purely because the government don't care. And these are numbers of deaths that we're not recording. That we are losing our young men, to the cold hands of death because we're not paying attention to their needs, to their welfare needs, to their economic needs and otherwise. So government is responsible for how to help people get any qualification, achievement, or education that they need. And that's your workforce. These are people who drive your economy. These are people who get you moving, so to speak. So why am I saying this? Electrician in Nigeria, I've never seen somebody, I would say, apart from a NEPA or PSCN, that wear their this thing. Of course, there might be some electrical companies, professional ones in places like Lagos and Port Harcourt and Abuja and stuff like that. But then we need to systemize these things across the whole country. We need to have a standard. I think a lot of things in Nigeria is that you find a few pockets of, say for example, one of the time I had an experience that somebody destroyed my car, a mechanic. He said, oh, you need to take it to Leventis. I was like, what is Leventis? He said, that's where people take cars in the past. So these things used to be there. There's something called Leventis before, where if you have a car issue, you take it to them and they are professional mechanics that can fix your car. But they are not anymore. They've all left Nigeria because of one reason or the other. Now, we need to have a way of bringing this. I think Mercedes have their branch in Nigeria, for example. Those are what I'm trying to talk about. Here in the UK, Mercedes might be a German company, but then they should have an outlet here in the UK, in Nigeria, for example, to sort of help you fix your cars. So we need to do all these things. And again, we need to have a body that oversees, say for example, if you take your car, for example, to a mechanic here, or you take it for servicing, they have a book, a logbook. They finish the servicing and they write. And again, it goes into a system as well, right? There's a system, you register that car to say, okay, this car has passed MOT, and these are all government systems. So government system puts in there the parts you bought, how you bought, everything is systemized. So if there's an audit, they can say, okay, yes, this person have actually. So you cannot just come and say, I've actually serviced the car when you haven't. There must be an action following whatever you're entering. But in Nigeria, nobody does servicing for starters. Some people say they have insurance in Nigeria. I've heard a few people say, but it's like, it's for the high and mighty that have good cars. But these are things that everybody should have insurance. If other countries can do these things, I'm not saying invent the wheel. I'm only saying copy and paste, just like we've been copying a lot of things. Why not copy what other countries are doing and practicalize it in our country, Nigeria? Do you understand? Why are we leaving the population, about 200 million people, to get quacks, to get incompetent people, why can't we systemize this thing? And it will be a way of employing the workforce as well. Go and learn a trade. And then when at the end of learning a trade, you have the certification. Not just people who went to school. What about our vocational schools? What about our skilled, just like we have nursing schools that produce our nurses. We should have like mechanical schools for like mechanics. We should have like an engineering school for anything, or anything. Electrical school, for example. If you want to be an electrician now, you go to a college. You don't just go to a university to learn it. You go to a college and learn it. You can learn it in university, elect as a course, but then that's a very high training. So all I'm trying to say is that we need to start, even the least menial job you will talk about here. Say, for example, you talk about a cleaner. A cleaner now, you have to train the cleaner. Every company that employ you will train you. Okay, this is how we clean. This is how to move the mop. I was a cleaner, so I know these things. I was cleaning hotels, so there are ways you move the mop so it doesn't leave mark on the this thing. They'll tell you after using it, so throw away that one, bring a new one so that it won't make marks. And so we need to have a form of training. Training is extremely important. Even me that is working in a good job, I still get training almost every week. Training is important. Training, retraining, training the trainer. We need to do these things, and we don't have to overlook it. Some of our teachers are teaching syllables that they use themselves, teaching with textbooks that have been written when they were young, when they use themselves. So where is the trainer? How do we develop? How do we, as a country, we need to learn the skill of, increasing the knowledge of our workforce is very, very pivotal. We need to learn how to grow the knowledge of the workforce, of the people. So when we talk about skilled workers, we're talking about those who are supposed to have done some particular training to learn. It's not common knowledge to know how electric work, because it's something that can kill you. And then there should be certification for that. Before you work in a transformer, you should have a level of certification to access a transformer. Have a special key that unlocks all transformers. Some transformers you can easily walk in and get access to. Some transformers are open. There should be a level of security around it. Do you understand? These are things we're supposed to put in place. An arrest should be made when somebody, like here in the UK, there are so many places you can't get into, and they will tell you any trespass is liable to pay £1,000 fine, for example. And that way, if that person gets caught, of course they will pay a lot of money, and you protect the citizens from, trespassing and also getting killed. So these are things we're supposed to put in place. Very, very important. Again, it's being a teacher. Here, you can't just be a teacher. You have to go to training and be a teacher. You can't just come and, even if you are teaching in primary school or in nursery school, you can't just come out and say you have to be a teacher. You have to go and do the qualification. Even small thing like creche, running a creche, what we call kindergarten in Nigeria. Here you have to go and do a training and get certification for that. You are self-employed in your house, but you have to get a training. Nigeria, anybody can tell you that they are minder. Anybody can tell you that anybody can come up and open a nursery school. Maybe government will say, okay, you're making money and come and ask you to pay for tax. But then is there any training for teachers? Is there any training? Are we sure that all our teachers have gone through that training? I mean, Kano State, one time the governor did a test for all the teachers, and people that are teachers cannot even pass a simple test, that was set to them. And these are people that are supposed to impact knowledge. What are they impacting? So these are skilled labor. These are our skilled workforce. How do we make sure that, and again, that should also work hand in hand with, of course, our businesses. Those who are selling the parts, where are they getting the parts? That should be controlled. There should be a way of checking that every chain of business, there's control on everything. They're importing, how does the custom work when things come in? How do they make sure that they are not disused or thrown away items? Do you make sure from the source that there's control? Tell the governments or anything that is below this ISO standard should not be imported in this country. For example, the UK gets things from China. That the same way, everybody goes to China and gets something. But there's a standard they have for UK. There's a standard they have for America. But Nigeria, when it comes to Nigeria, they bring down the standard so low because the country don't care. The country doesn't, go to China and say, you cannot bring this certain level of products into our country. And that's why you have a lot of issues. When things break down, they tell you, it's China. And they think it's something that they should just ignore. No, you shouldn't. We should look at how to fix these things. We should have to take priority in our skilled force, make sure we have competent teachers, competent mechanics, competent plumbers, because when issues like this arise, it affects the economic value of the person that owns it. Then in turn, they will increase the rent of the people, and it affects everybody in turn. Have competent electricians do your work. So when you want to do anything, you go to competent. But now, if you ask me, how do you assess a competent electrician? Nobody knows. Should I be asking you for a particular certificate to know that you've been verified or you've gone through a process? No, there's nothing I know I can ask you of. Unless I have to go and get a NEPA electrician. But then you can't get access to a NEPA because he's employed. He's working for a company. So these are the problems. How do we, make sure that all our teachers are competent? Is there an institution that produces these people? How do you know that you're a nurse or somebody who calls themselves a nurse? How do you know a nurse in Nigeria? Once you wear white gown and put something white on your head, you're a nurse. Nobody cares. Nobody asks you of these things. But here in the UK, there's licenses. If you make a mistake, you'll be thrown out, you'll be struck out. And what betide you go and work without that license, you'll be going to jail. So we need to put these institutions in place, and everything, every time, every topic, everything falls down on the government. That's where the buck stops. At the desk of the president or the desk of the governor or whoever is in charge. And again, we know that these things cannot come in place without active, willful, efforts from the government and those in decision making. I mean, I'm not in decision making. I'm not in any position. But all I'm saying is, why are these things not done? Is it because these guys don't know what to do, or because they don't care, or because there's no willpower? And I think the latter is the issue. So we need to start speaking or continue speaking. Please share this video, send it to anybody in politics, send it to any of a politician friend or political friend, anybody, and let us keep talking about these things and see if we can get this right. Like I said, yes, the student loan is fantastic, but we have to make it accessible to everybody, especially the common man, the poor man on the street. How do they get this loan? They are the ones that need it. We can't be making life easier for the rich, those who have access to level 12 government workers. What of the poor who doesn't know anybody? What of the poor who comes from a poor family who just want to go to school to have an avenue of having a bright future? Who sees education as his only instrument of getting better in life? These are the people that need that access. And again, like I said, we need to put checks and balances in place in every aspect of our economy, especially with our workforce. Our workforce, everybody needs to be trained. You can't just come and coach a football team without being a coach. You haven't gone to a coaching school and you come out and say you're a coach. Everything has to be, competent and licensed or certified. You can't be a driver in this country if you don't have license. In Nigeria, my mother doesn't know how to drive, but she has a license. Well, she can't drive because she doesn't want to die, but I'm telling you that it's so easy for anybody to get a license. These are the problems. There was a time, is it BBC or CNN did a documentary on a driving school in Nigeria. The driving school was using what we call a Volkswagen Beetle. Very old, no plate number. You see the cars they use for driving school here. They will have mechanisms that the instructor can stop the car if you're about to have accidents. Here everything is properly systemized. You will see that driving schools are there doing what they need to do, and everybody. I failed my driving test, practical, 9 times. That's how hard it is to get a driving test, and that's why when I was in Nigeria and Federal Road City wanted to seize my license, I said, you can't seize my license, so I can leave the car for you, but you see this license, I won't give it to you because my license is as powerful as. In fact, your license can stand as an ID, can stand as an equivalent of your passport. That's how hard it is to get your license in the UK. And these are because there are processes in place. Nigeria, anybody can come and tell you he's a driver, and people will willfully give their life to them. If you want to enter a bus, if you want to enter a luxury bus, or let's say a bus from Onitsha to Lagos, do you ask the driver to show you his license? Do they even have license? We all just enjoy our lives until we have accident, everybody die, people will start videoing. So there should be systems in check. There should be, these are things that our police should be busy doing. But then our police are just busy standing on the road collecting money. Nobody asks you of your driving license. Okay, let's say, for example, they ask you of your license. Sometimes road safety will stop you and ask you for license. Yes, it's good. But then how do you checkmate the main source? How do you make sure that how people get this license is credible? Who trains these people? What is the school they went to? Here, there's a point system. If you overspeed, you get points. As I'm talking to you, I have 6 points. Because I've oversped twice in my last 4 years of driving. Right now, if you overspeed, you get 3 points. You pay £100 on top of that. So next time you know not to speed. And sometimes it's by mistake. But even here, mistake is not an excuse. They will tell you the signs are there. So what am I trying to say? Everything has to be systemized for your own good. Is to protect me, to make sure I don't, kill myself and I don't kill people. And that's why, yes, there is accidents here in the UK, but it's not fatal. It's hard for you to see somebody die. Even if the car is some assault, most times because they are wearing seatbelts and there is mechanism in the car by airbags deploying, usually people don't lose their lives. But Nigeria, any small thing, many people will die because most people don't even wear seatbelts. Second off, there is no airbag in most of the cars because it's so old. Nobody is doing MOT. You see somebody own car for 20 years. They don't even know what is servicing. Doesn't even know what is changing fuel unless he goes to a mechanic. And again, they don't even know how to use the right fuel. I remember what happened to me. I went to buy fuel. I'm telling this man, let's Google and get the right fuel. The guy said, just buy this one. Because he works for Total, he said Total is the rest. And we bought Total into the car. As well as he's moving, we move. So you don't drive with a lot of confidence in Nigeria purely because of these systems. And these are things we're supposed to be working on. How do we make our workforce equipped, competent, licensed, and people can have peace of mind? And when they're in Nigeria, they can get the best. We're not in 19 Borogidime anymore. We're not in 1900. We are in 2023. And our governments are still struggling with the most minute things that you can get anywhere in the world. How then do we develop ourselves? How do we claim that we are so intelligent, we are so educated elsewhere in the world? In our home, we're living like people who are in dark ages, in stone ages. Come on. I'm going to stop here, but I believe we've gotten the gist. Please, even you yourself as a person, try to patronize people who have gone through the stress of getting licensed, people who have gone through the sense of getting their things the proper way. If you want to use an architect that is registered. If you want to use, say for example, any worker, make sure that you ask them, okay, have you been trained for this? Have you gotten this? Even people, things like, we don't have tailor here. I wanted to use the example with tailor, but there is no tailor here. If you want to sew clothes here, you have to go to, do people even sew clothes here? I don't think so, you just buy clothes. I mean, if you want to sew a suit, you probably go to, I don't know, they will even charge you over the head. I don't think anybody can sew clothes here. But even at that, any little thing that we're doing, we need to make sure there is a system in place to make sure not just anybody can come out and do that. And there's a standardization. There's a level that is acceptable and there's a level that is not. Even the people who are doing business, let people know that there is a government. Let there be government presence in everything. And that way, we can have a more developed and civilized society. People will know what is obtainable, what should be done. Society will respond. Because people think that Nigerians are wayward people. No! Come and see Nigerians in America. Come and see Nigerians in UK. Come and see Nigerians in Australia. Come and see Nigerians in Germany. They are well developed. They are well... They do things the way it should be done. They stop at street lights. They stop at zebra crossing. They do what they should do. They get their licenses. It's purely because there's no government and there's no system. That's why things look the way it is in Nigeria. And the same people, when they come back at the end of the day or they come back for holidays, they return back to square zero and behave like animals because the system allows that. So we need to find a way of systemizing these things and getting the best out of us and developing our society. It is all our responsibility, not just government, but us as well to obey these regulations. Somebody said something that's quite pivotal. I was listening to Peter's Life. He said, out of all the bills that President Buhari passed, the Ninth Assembly always boasts that they've passed the highest number of bills. How many of them have affected your life directly? How many of them have you seen in play? And that's a very important thing. Here in the UK, once there's a bill, once there's a law, you see everybody following suit doing the same thing. And that's implementation. And the heavy part of implementation falls on the police. They're the ones that are supposed to make sure everything is implemented. But look how uneducated our police force is. Look how, in fact, we need to retire almost all our police force, recruit people that are roaming the streets as graduates, recruit them into the police force, let them know the basics. Because a lot of policing is not about shooting people. A lot of policing is about implementation. That's why in this country they don't carry guns. Some countries they don't carry guns. It's about implementation, doing the right thing. Of course, they will have backup, but then we need to get people who know the law, people who know what is obtainable. Let there be checks and balances in the system. And not everything needs the police, actually. You can have an oversight. You can have, say, for example, auditors, for businesses or companies, from company's house or whatever. And then also have, oversight companies that go to check buildings and confirm if the plumber has done well, or check workers and see, have you been authorized to do this? Have you been licensed to do this? Have you shown your company? What company are you registered under? And make these things very cheap. Not just coming to say you have to have a company and then making it very hard for them or collecting money. No. Because the thing is that the government is always after their pocket. So the people see them as enemies rather than people they're supposed to work with and partner with. So we're supposed to see a partnership between government and the people, private partnership. So everybody needs to see that they are part of the system. By doing what is right, and the system will support you, right? Now, Peter said something that's very important. He said, We have a federal mortgage bank bill that was signed by Buhari. How many times have people collect mortgage? Even if it is the lives of the civil servant that is affected. Let's say, for example, now this particular student loan affects only civil servants who are in level 12 and need to send their children to school. It is still better. People should be able to access mortgage. Mortgage means you buy a house and you're paying every month to the government for years. People should be able to do this. Government, if they are not corrupt, can do this. A country like Libya, we are paying benefits to their citizens before Gaddafi died. Look at South Africa. Look how beautiful it is. We can do this collectively. All of us can be rich rather than having so many, poor people and extremely rich people. The gap is too much. We can bridge that gap. Thank you so much. Please share this video, comment, like, suggest a topic for me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow these pages. I'm on Facebook as well. I have a page on Facebook, Best Practices Today. Follow me everywhere. I need your contributions, guys. Let's make this fun. And thank you so much. Please send to your political friends and continue to have this discussion. And like I said, we are the leaders of tomorrow, and this is our tomorrow. All right? Let us get this country right. Let us fix Nigeria. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.